I've always thought of myself as a risk taker. You know, the kind of person to leap first and ask questions later. It's that same thing that motivated me to move out of my parents' home and into my current apartment in West Texas. It's also how I got my promotion that funded this move. But you're not here to celebrate that. You're here for what occurred to me 3 months ago, an experience that profoundly changed my life. Granted, I may have always been a risk taker, but I've never once been stupid. A little background on where I stay. I stay in a slightly rural area, and our apartment complex does not have a working gate. This is important for later. Though crime isn't high here, or the serious ones at least, you did hear of the occasional break in, theft, or domestic violence case. Which brings us to the midpoint here. At the time, I was new to the area, so I had no friends, family, or anyone in this area. But that all changed when shortly I began talking to one of my fellow coworkers, who we'll call Chad. Chad was a skinny 6'2" Caucasian male with brown eyes and black hair. At first glance, he seemed harmless. To an extent, he was, but that's until I noticed just how controlling he was. We had only gone out on a few dates, but Chad was incessant on knowing my every move, who I was with, and why was I with them. This sent immediate red flags up in my mind, and I promptly cut ties with him. Crisis averted, right? No, not at all. See, Chad wasn't done with me. He in fact relished the hunt. See, after blocking him on multiple apps and every form of communication I knew imaginable, I began getting threatening emails and texts from random accounts. This went on for some time, and until I threatened to get the police involved, that I get this one chilling reply: "Do it. You'll be dead before you get the chance." Alarmed, I spoke to the police, and though I couldn't pin it on Chad, I knew it was him. But sadly, all the police could do was advise me on internet safety. Now, meanwhile, at work, I would notice Chad often giving me dirty, emotionless, and sometimes evil stares or grins. This confirmed my suspicions, and after doing more digging, my colleagues informed me that Chad had asked several other people for my new contact information, and after failing to obtain it, I guess this is the root of those dirty, frustrated looks of his. He couldn't stand to be bested, I imagined. Fast forward a couple weeks, and things seem to have calmed down a bit. No more threatening messages or dirty looks from Chad, and I heard far less from him at work. Still, my instincts wouldn't let me keep my guard down. So, as I made my way to leave from work one late night, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. In the small lot across the street, I noticed 3 cars were left. It was mine, my coworker Anna, and Chad's. Upon noticing this, I quickened my pace to my car and hurriedly got in, locked the doors, and began to pull off, to see Chad having appeared from seemingly nowhere, standing ominously on the adjacent street, staring at my car as it pulled off with a hateful scowl. As I got down the road, I snickered to myself. You gotta be quicker than that, my boy. About a day afterwards, Chad missed work and called in sick, much to my glee, and I in turn spent my evening going on a trail. As I hiked, it was so surreal to be surrounded by all the nature, and it was a great relief from. I stopped to see who was coming, but it was too late, as something hit me in the head, and it knocked me out. I only caught a glimpse of a hooded figure jogging past, and when I awoke, a doctor was standing over me, and they informed me about what happened, and I had to give a police report. My parents were hysterical, and I too was a bit panicked. It was then I exclaimed it to be Chad, and the officers agreed to this time investigate it. I believe it was all too obvious, and was mad at myself for letting my guard down. However, my parents consoled me and stayed with me that night. In the coming days, Chad was still on sick leave, but apparently had a rock solid alibi on his whereabouts. I didn't care as I knew he was linked somehow. Still, I couldn't do anything as there was still nothing to tie him to it. I felt helpless, like he was always 10 steps ahead of me. Work was tense as Chad gave me those predatory stares and the occasional grin. I began considering quitting until Anne talked me out of it. I didn't want him to win, and after all, I worked hard for my position. Which brings us to the end game here. The office one day threw a party for us, having exceeded our quota, and everyone would be in attendance. I tried keeping him out of my mind and avoiding him at all costs, but Chad seemed to have had enough. He approached me, and I ignored him. This seemed to anger him, and to my surprise, he threw the punch being served on me, staining my dress. I stormed off in anger to clean myself up when Anna then followed me. I began to sob, and she told me that she was sure by now that Chad had been kicked out. But this didn't matter, because Chad had become the bane of my life. I informed Anna I would be leaving, and after cleaning up, she escorted me to my car. As I drove to my apartment, I began to notice a car tailing me. I know who it was and floored it through my apartment's entrance. Remember, the gate was unlocked. As I parked, I flew out and ran into my apartment. As I tried to hurry and lock the door behind me, Chad bursted through, knocking me down. I kicked him in the groin, and he yelled in agony as I hastily ran to him. I nearly made it in, but he grabbed my hair and slammed me to the wall. He then proceeded to say, "You've been a real resilient pain in my side, you know. I tried everything to rid of you, and now I'll do it this way, the hard way." I hit him again, and this time I grabbed the knife that was on the counter and began stabbing him repeatedly. I used to butcher at my uncle's ranch in Waco, so I know my way around a blade. Chad screamed, then began to cough and choke on his own blood. I watched as he stared up at me in such fear, much the same way I used to. Now, though, I couldn't help but feel some glee as he grew silent. It was then I decided to call the police. The camera showed everything, and some witnesses too came forward. This event profoundly changed my life, as I won't be on the dating scene for a very, very long time.